Attendees, we move on to our keynote speaker. Hi, Walter. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me tonight.
All right. So Walter is head of corporate communication, Hashkey Group. Hashkey Group has applied for a license with the SFC to run an exchange for cryptocurrency and virtual assets. The firm has a strong bench of experienced leaders from the financial service industry. Walter is also CEO of Asia Insight Circle, a CEO and board director, Thought Leadership and Networking Association. Based in Hong Kong, AIC hosts monthly meetings where executives share insights and strategies across topical, trending business issues. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. So, good evening. I'm here to give a talk about the top 5 trends that we're seeing in retail that are shaping financial services. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And what I want to do is give a short presentation that I'll speak to, and then we will be happy to go into discussion and take some questions. So as introduction, let me begin with a little bit more about myself. As our moderator introduced, I lead marketing and communications at Hashkey Group. And this is a digital asset exchange or a cryptocurrency exchange based here in Hong Kong that is seeking SFC licensing. And we are, that means that as a registered cryptocurrency exchange in Hong Kong, we will be licensed to work with institutions, portfolio managers, and professional investors. So I was asked by the organizers to talk about some of the trends that we see in retail, that we see shifting into financial services, and then ways we as marketers can think about handling those trends and handling that information so that we're able to stay abreast with what's occurring in the overall market. Just a little bit of introduction. I am based here in Hong Kong. I'm originally an American. I'm currently now a dual national, American and Australian. I began my career in financial public relations and have also worked in technology. Prior to coming to Hashkey here in Hong Kong, I had been at Huawei in Shenzhen for 3 years, where I looked after global corporate reputation. And that was very much about helping Huawei position itself and explain its businesses in a fairly complex environment. This was during the beginning of the Trump trade war era, and also with Huawei's finding itself having challenges in some of the trade restrictions that were placed on it. I have worked both in agencies as well as in-house with H&K Strategies, Edelman, and a boutique firm called Gavin Anderson and Company, which is now Creab. And I have worked in-house at Ford Motor Credit in Detroit, as well as Huawei and Hashkey Group. A bit of a global citizen. I've lived in New York, Sydney, Hong Kong, Detroit, and Shenzhen. So enough background on me, but I wanted to put that in as to explain a little bit about my background and also the way I approach the marketing and communications arena. Where we stand at the moment, and a lot of what's driving these trends that I'll be talking about are as a result of the global pandemic. A lot of the technologies, a lot of what I'm going to talk about are technology related. We have seen in the last 24 months fast adaptation of technology, and not just the adoption and adaptation to technology, but also the human behaviors that drive the uptake of these technologies. you'll all recall, prior to 2020, the idea of taking a video meeting was still a bit unusual, and it helped you connect with audiences in other countries, but the business traveler was still always on the road. My very last business trip was to Seattle and Taiwan and New York, working for Boeing Corporation and a large luxury yacht manufacturer. And what has happened since is that Hong Kong, which has always been a city that was driven by international travel, has found itself now with an airport where we're more or less closed to international travel. And we've all adapted to new patterns of behavior. What I think is quite interesting is that if we look at um, what it takes to break a bad habit or to start a new behavior is really nothing more than a little over 2 months. The behaviorists tell you that it takes 66 days to adjust to a new behavior or to introduce better behaviors. So if you have a bad habit, stick at it for 66 days and you'll see change. What we've seen amongst the consumers is fantastic change, altered patterns, altered behaviors. And this has been driven by by pandemic restrictions, lockdowns in many countries, as well as social distancing and safety measures. Also, during that period of time, we've seen great fiscal stimulus in some countries, and those who have income have a high amount of disposable income, and there are others who have no income. So these are some of the factors that are driving the changes that we're seeing. What I want to do, and I was asked to do, is give you a bit of a top 5 countdown, and these are purely my views, and yet I feel these are some of the changes that are driving the way consumers of financial services approach, and these are the trends that we see in retail that are now commonplace in financial services. Um, First, foremost is the always on, the 24 by 7 by 365. Now, at Hashkey Group, what that means is as a licensed exchange, we, at a licensed digital asset exchange or a crypto exchange, we have to be available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are not a traditional exchange. We don't run bankers' hours. And neither do consumers expect their financial services to be locked up and only available 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the average day. You're seeing that people have shifted their work patterns. They've got children working from schooling from home at the same time that they're working from home, and they need accessibility when they want it, whenever they want it. If we think similarly about shopping, we have everything available to us at our fingertips at any time of day or night. And similarly, financial services need to be the same. For us as marketers, it changes the windows in which we have to operate. We're dealing with customer service issues every minute of every day. And those customer service issues, which bloom in social media, need to be resolved in a way that protects the brand while also enhancing the consumer experience. The consumer needs to feel that love from marketers and the responsiveness of their brand at all times. Now, that's great if we're using automation, but if we're not, if we're kind of checking our social streams on a 9 to 5 basis, you're going to have challenges. So when you've got 24/7, 365 customer service, you're going to need to have marketing solutions that are available at all times and supporting the business in this way. So it does mean a non-stopping run. It's a marathon without an end. So it shifts the way we might deploy resources. It shifts the way we plan out the annual budget because we're needing to be responsive and responsible at all times, at all hours. I find it very interesting that some of the restaurants that I have available to me on Uber Eats don't exist. They're ghost kitchens. A ghost kitchen is a restaurant that might serve Italian food and recognizes that there's demand for fish and chips in their neighborhood and no other fish and chips restaurant is available. So they'll create the fake restaurant or a branded restaurant that is a fish and chips store that has no restaurant anywhere, but it's available to you on Uber Eats. Similarly, in financial services here in Hong Kong, we've had a half dozen virtual banks open and get licensed and now operating, and they have no branches. They have no staff in for face-to-face service, and almost all of their solutions are technology enabled, and they are responding to customers who don't have the ability to come in to any of the branches or any of the stores and fall in love. So what that means is your only chance to build a relationship with the consumer is online, is either through the app, through the website, or through the social media engagements that you have with consumers. This is forcing you into ways of speaking with and engaging with your customers that's quite unusual for those of you who are accustomed to more of a bricks and mortar approach. For the virtual banks, this has really meant a new way of trying to win share of mind and share of heart and share of wallet. Very similar to, as we fully are aware, the no brick retail, the stores that have no shops, but are available to consumers and create a relationship. We think about those brands that we've fallen in love with on Instagram. We've seen them in our social feeds, and we read about them in the news. So it really requires a new way to approach storytelling and to build an engagement with your brand. The next trend that I'm looking at is kind of the way that financial services are segmenting and slicing themselves up to serve specific segments or specific target audiences. In the last year, we've seen the explosive growth of Robinhood, the online trading app, and that's an extremely different experience from, say, a traditional brokerage service like Merrill Lynch. It's as we look at the wealth industry, we see that many of those participating in this area fail to understand the digital experience and aren't responding the right way to their high net worth clients and building the digital experience that matches the luxury experience that these types of investors can have. Now, for you, we're looking at, as a marketer, the ability then to segment and look at audiences in very different ways, either by geography, as we heard earlier, or by socioeconomics, or by special interests, or by affinity. And don't forget the power of the customer base as they build their passion for the brand. But the segmented brands allow the companies to capture very unique audiences and look at the unique needs of each of those individual groups. The next trend that we're looking at is the kind of the wisdom of crowds, or the psychology of crowds. We have, in financial services, seen several trends take hold that really just shot up by, say, a Wall Street Reddit subgroup that included the astronomical growth of GameStop or AMC stock. These really became kind of the hobby horses of the crowds that were quite interested to see a brand that they loved suddenly rocket up in value. And then, because of the connected consumers and the psychology of crowds, you're seeing financial impacts like Dogecoin, which has and was issued with no value, yet has somehow managed to maintain quite a high valuation. So when we're, as marketers, we have to be aware of trends, but also responsive to trends. I will tell you that the investor relations team at GameStop and at AMC were quite surprised to see their brand at the heart of a trend that was driving up their share prices astronomically. Now, for us as marketers, it requires us then to stay abreast of the trends, understand the sectors we're in, and look for the crowds that are fomenting these changes and the crowds and their special interests and their passions that will help us better connect with the various consumers. But also sometimes we just have to be prepared from an issues management standpoint to be responsive to what's changing and what's driving up, whether it's the valuation or the brand, and can also lead to quite positive developments as well as quite negative developments. Similarly, we have seen quite a significant shift when people turn against a brand, and the way a brand can have a in-person challenge with one or two consumers and see that spread very quickly across its base. So if you don't have the alerts set up, you're going to miss the trend that might impact your brand. You're wanting to know at all times where your brand is and whether that's a positive or negative trend that's influencing your comms and your marketing. Because if you're not abreast of these, you can perhaps inadvertently feed the wrong messages and the wrong material, and have challenges with the same base you're trying to connect with. I think the number one trend that is hitting everyone in financial services, as well as in any marketing, is the experience. We talk about customer experience, which is above and beyond customer service. It's the entire impression that you have based on the brand and based on every element and every touch point. Now, at Hashkey Group, we're building a new brand. This company was founded in 2018, and we have the exchange, we have brokerage, we have custody, and we have a venture capital fund. And we're mapping across every touch point how we're connecting with the different types of consumers that we service. Hashkey Group works with institutional investors, portfolio managers, professional investors, ultra high net worth individuals. And when you look at the customer journey, you're needing to track where they're touching with your brand from their initial awareness all the way through to search, research, purchase, and experience. What's great about this figure in the slide is it shows you all the ways that we can leverage the marketing tools that we use to improve those touch points. But what is vital is to make sure there's a commonality of that experience. You shouldn't feel loved when the brand is trying to recruit you as a new customer under awareness and findability. And then find that your experience during purchase or post-purchase or during the ongoing relationship is very different. Again, if you have a brand that is slicing its services to different audiences, there are going to be some common tenets that you must set, some common baseline experience that you need to ensure that so that your audience is having your customer is having a common experience, whether it's on the app, whether it's on the website, whether it's in person, so that there is reliability of the brand. If you're going to make a commitment to your customer, you have to make sure you follow through on that. So when we look at the 5 trends, we are seeing very many of them that are touching into technology, into the way we will use technology. If you're using AI for predictive behavior in terms of customer service, or whether you're looking for deep data to understand the segments of audiences that you're trying to reach, whether you're connecting with consumers and riding into and touching into their issues and their challenges. These are some of the trends that we see in retail that are really influencing financial services. Um, Most of the work that I'm involved in does tend to be business to business financial services versus business to consumer. And I know that on the consumer side, this only gets more challenging. What I wanted to do is kind of think about how this is going to feed into 2022. If you're like me, you're watching the news and you're watching what's happening in countries around the world with concern. What we had thought might be a 12 or possibly 24-month experience with the pandemic does appear to be maintaining its pace. Uh, and at present, uh, Hong Kong does not look set to reopen its airport to the world until mid 2022. So we can anticipate an upcoming winter of difficulty. And that means that we're going to have to lean into technology, whether that is AI to help you with customer service or deep data to help you better understand your audiences. These, the technology, the connectivity that's coming with 5G will force us all as marketers to even more understand, engage, and leverage technology as best we can. I'm very happy to, um, um, for anyone who has any questions, please post them in the chat, or I will stop sharing screen in a moment, and then we can get into a dialogue for the remaining 10 minutes. But before I do want to just introduce the company that I'm working for, Hashkey Group. We are based in Hong Kong, and we are a financial services firm specializing in digital assets or cryptocurrency as one example of the digital assets you might be aware of. We're building an exchange that is licensed by the SFC and will allow us to tokenize assets, whether that's real estate, uh, pieces of art, um, uh, livestock. Uh, there are so many different asset classes that we're going to be able to tokenize and offer. The firm also has brokerage, custody, venture capital, and we're a smaller firm. We're here in Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, and Shanghai. We operate in the 4 countries using 3 languages and 2 dialects. That would be simplified in traditional Chinese, Japanese, and English. And as a professional licensed crypto exchange, we are focused exclusively on institutional investors and ultra high net worth individuals. So we have a program that we're introduced, Crypto Savvy, which is podcasting as well as in-person meetings. But I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. I'm looking forward to, if there are any questions or issues, please let me know, and appreciate the opportunity to share with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. The 5 strategies, yep, very interesting one. So attendees, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can post it on the chat.
Now, how has the conference been going so far today?
It's so special today for me. A lot of enlightenment about digital marketing strategies and so on. Of course, it was very interesting.
Now, where are the majority of the audience visiting from?
We have quite a few from Africa and region from United States.
I have, when I was at Huawei, I was frequently traveling in Africa, and so I've only been to 4 countries in the continent. So, however, I think Huawei is present in 50 of the countries of Africa. So I still have quite a few to visit.
All right. Okay. So about this cryptocurrency, what are your thoughts on the cryptocurrency?
Look, I am One of the challenges I face is that we're trying to help people better understand digital assets. And the downside is that so much of what people read is about the volatility and the price of Bitcoin. And that is one of many coins that are available on virtual exchanges.
Right.
What we're seeing, though, is very similar to what happened in traditional stock markets, where we went from men and women who would wheel around carts piled high with stacks of stock shares or scripts. And those were moved successfully onto digital platforms. So we think nothing about trading shares that way. What we're looking at with digital assets is just a different representation of value stored in a different fashion. I feel that firms like HashKey and people like myself are in some ways pioneers. And they do say that when you drive across the plains of the prairies, it's filled with the bones of the pioneers. But by the time my son is in a role in his job, I feel that he'll have digital assets in his retirement account. His company will have them on their treasuries, and countries will be issuing them or using them. China is moving towards central bank digital currency, which is a little bit different. But I would suggest this, they're early days, but they're here to stay. So the more we can understand them and the more we can possibly use them, I think all the better.
That's right. Regarding the understanding, I still see that a lot of unawareness still exists about cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, there's a lot of hesitation and caution. I think that some people have gone from having specialty assets to being multimillionaires, and others have bought at the high end and lost. But once we perhaps have a little bit more time, these were only invented in 2008 after
Right.
the last financial crisis. And what's kind of ironic is how these unbridled or unmanaged asset is suddenly winding up in license exchanges with central governments beginning to issue rules for how they can and cannot be used.
Right.
So it's a new field, it's new territory, but your comms and marketing professionals were accustomed to starting from nothing and building awareness and educating a market about new services, about new brands. And that's kind of the excitement of being in marketing and communications. You get to kind of be at the forefront.
That's right. So, this is a personal question about which cryptocurrency can we invest?
So thankfully, I don't get to provide investment advice. And that said, I would suggest even if you're the most skeptical, try it, trade it, because there's the education, the familiarity that it takes a while to learn. So if you're not doing it, you're not going to have that chance to. There's no chance to understand it yourself. So I'd say you got to be in it to understand it. And the education that comes through your first transaction is all the better. So please, even if your parents or grandparents are skeptics, have them try a tiny little amount, and then they'll see the experience and perhaps they'll learn something.
Right. On the same line, I think we have a question from an attendee. Is there any possible way to streamline the virtual currency globally to enhance and educate people?
Yeah, look, there are these are bonanza days for firms in virtual assets, because we are inventing the consumer services and the business services that allow people to work and trade much easier. Today, there are many barriers to entry. If we've tried to set up exchange accounts and tried to set up a wallet, it's really difficult. So look forward to a much easier experience as companies get more sophisticated and there's more consumer demand. And we will do everything we can to streamline it so that there's greater adoption.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's I know it's mid-afternoon in Africa. It's 11 p.m. here in Hong Kong, and it's been great to been able to share this with your audience.
Thank you very much, Walter, for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, Walter, another
Yeah.
question from an attendee.
Yeah.
Does HashKey have an app?
Yes, we will have an app. At the moment, we, by only working with institutional investors, we do not offer retail services.
Okay.
However, we are pursuing a license in Singapore that would allow us to have a retail. So let me tell you, that's under development. And it's been interesting for me to try to streamline the experience for the online consumer from the different apps we have in different countries for different audiences. So that's why I was talking about the number one trend of being it's all about experience.
Right. Okay, great, Walter. It's been a pleasure, sharing your thoughts to our attendees. And also,
Great. Well, I wish you the best at the rest of the conference, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.